Okay, hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining today here on a different version of the podcast. This one is going to be a little bit unedited, only because we are doing a Zoom call with a special guest, all the way from halfway across the world. So it is light where I'm at. Hopefully, it's not too dark where you're at. So, as you guys know, I do talk on my podcast about how it is to be a Black woman with bipolar 2 and psychosis. So, today I really want to focus on what it is like for someone else to go through mental disorders as well, how it affects their mental state, how it affects their daily lives. So, today I have Sargardeep Singh here on the line. Hello.
Hello,
How are you doing today?
I'm good. How about yourself?
Good. I know it's what is it? Probably 10 p.m., 11 p.m.
10:30. Yeah,
Oh my God. Well, again, I thank you so much for doing this because it's
of
only
course.
12 p.m. here. I'm about to have lunch. So thank you. So, can you just like introduce yourself a little bit, tell people just a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. So, as you know, my name is Sagardeep Singh. I'm from India. Uh, I run an Instagram page called From a Bipolar Mind. I was initially diagnosed with bipolar like about 9 years ago, which I did not accept. Went through a lot of phase of substance abuse and a lot of things. So finally accepted my diagnosis about a year and a half ago, and have been running this page ever since, trying to connect to other people. It's been a great journey. So that's
Oh,
about it.
oh, that's awesome, man. And to be diagnosed just 8 years ago, oh man, like how, I guess, why advocate for mental health?
I think the main part was that I did not accept my diagnosis, and that caused a lot of issues. I was a freshman in college, and I kind of felt lost when the doctor actually did tell me that I might have bipolar disorder. I did not accept it. Went through a long phase of alcohol and substance abuse. I lost my best friend to overdose,
Hmm.
and a lot of things happened. So I think that's when I finally accepted my diagnosis. I wanted to connect with other people and maybe try and help them with this, but majorly because I wanted to understand how others are being affected by this.
Well, I'm not gonna lie, when I saw your page, I absolutely loved the content in it because just like you, I didn't accept my diagnosis no matter how many psychiatrists I went to. I was like, no, they clearly don't have a PhD in what they're doing. And
Absolutely.
it's really easy to deny it because you're like, well, I don't want this to be wrong with me. And I feel what you're saying. It's just not easy to accept at all. And I'm so sorry you went through substance abuse, but I'm glad that you're managing, it seems like now.
Yeah, actually, I've been clean and sober for about 3.5 years now. So
Congratulations. That's
thank
awesome.
you.
You're
Thank you.
welcome. You're welcome. So when did you first notice, before you got diagnosed, did you notice anything that was maybe a little different?
Actually, yes. So, first year of college, I at that point I was working with a lot of friends. I was actually a lyricist, music producer for underground hip hop community here.
Oh,
I
nice.
was doing a lot of music production for a lot of famous people here.
Mm,
I think that's when it all started. Uh, it just kind of went hazy. I just went so fast, and things were just going great for me. It wasn't actually not like it wasn't actually a depressive phase. It was a manic phase, and
mm.
things were speeding up. And that's when I felt kind of disturbed and lost in that whole speed and whole. I kind of achieved things that I did not even intend to.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I was doing shows that I never thought I would. I was performing in front of 3 or 4 thousand people at a time, and that was something I never expected myself to do. And that kind of started the whole struggle. So I just went to see a psychiatrist just normally, and he told me that this might be a full-blown manic episode, and which I did not agree to. Which I thought, no, I am this great, so
Yeah.
it was going good. So I wasn't ready to accept anything that was wrong. So I think that was the whole issue, and that was what brought it on. Uh, and I think that was the reason why I did not accept it, because things were going so great. Why would I accept something that, this is wrong with you? It's not going great. This is happening because of something uh, that's going to affect you for the rest of your life. So that's something that I did not accept, and that's where it all started.
Now, you have bipolar disorder. Is it type 1, type 2, or
Type
is
one.
type 1? Okay.
Yeah.
And that's a severe one as well,
Yeah.
because it can really fluctuate, especially I believe what I've read is that it's a lot of rapid cycling as well.
Uh, it is actually. So the whole point was, I also thought that I was type 2. But when I actually went for a diagnosis, when I explained everything that was happening, they said it wasn't hypomania, it was a full blown manic episode,
Hmm.
where it went to a point where I used to get out of my room when I was back in college. I used to wear sunglasses, not meet anybody, not make any eye contact, and I would only take those sunglasses off as soon as I went back to my room.
Oh, wow.
That was kind of the phase that I was going through, and that the doctor explained that that was a full blown manic episode. So that kind of put things in perspective.
Oh man, and that is such a, and for people who don't know, rapid cycling means that you go through episodes up, down, back and forth, and that actually plays a big strain on our brain. You can cause tears, you can cause, some people have even had worse cases too, where it actually can cause tumors because your brain is doing so much, it can't even function. But I'm glad that you were able to get diagnosed and know exactly what's going on. For
Yeah.
myself, when I was diagnosed, they first said bipolar 1, and then they put it down to bipolar 2 because it was only a day or two when I would experience my hypomania. So that was I don't want to say a relief because you go through it, but
Yeah.
it was kind of like, okay, well, maybe I can manage this. But even though they told me what it was, I still didn't want to do anything because I was still in denial. I mean,
Yeah.
it's hard. So now knowing that your diagnosis, because you also have PTSD, correct?
Yeah. So yes, I think that was what was explained to me was I do have some symptoms of PTSD. I might not have CPTSD or like full blown PTSD, because it was basically a trigger for about 6.5 years when I was in denial. A lot of things happened that kind of lined up to be traumatic events. Uh, like, for example, I lost my best friend to overdose, and that kind of still
Mm.
brings up a lot of things. I still kind of dream about it, wake up in the middle of night, and things do kind of happen. So that was, I think, PTSD and GAD, anxiety disorder, was triggered by the denial of bipolar that I had.
Oh man, I'm so sorry for your loss as well.
Thank you.
Hmm. Did your friends or family notice, or when you told them what you have, how did that affect them? If you did tell them, if you have told them.
So I did not tell them initially when I did not accept it myself, but back when I came back from college, I was working, and it kind of started becoming even harder and harder every day to manage without, uh, you know, proper medication or proper
Hmm.
help, and that kind of led me to come clean to my parents and my family. And I was lucky, my family is very supportive of this.
Good.
My family, they always they went with me with to each session that I had with my therapist or my psychiatrist. They went with me, they stayed there, they uh, heard the diagnosis themselves, they were there. And but again, I think it's not exactly about people around you being helpful and supportive. It's also about having people around who can understand what's going on.
100%.
Right. Yeah. So who can relate? I think that's why I started this Instagram page, and that's something that has come like that's been really great. Knowing other people, and knowing that people are there who understand, who relate to it, and the comments that I get on my posts, that kind of made sense. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. And your page is really doing wonders. I mean, I share it all the time with people that I know,
Yeah.
not even people that have bipolar, but people that I
Mhm.
want them to understand, this is not just a me thing. This
Yeah,
is going on all over. And a lot of people, they go undiagnosed for so many years. And I know one lady, part of a Facebook group, she said she was just diagnosed and she's been feeling this way for the last 10 years. And that's a scary feeling, especially if you
of
don't even
course,
know
10 years.
where to start.
Of course, 10 years is a long time. I think my journey became a bit easier because at the back of my mind I did have this thing that somebody did tell me that I might have an issue,
Hmm.
but not even knowing what's going on, that's going to be really hard. That's a really hard battle to win. Yeah.
Yeah. How do you handle when you do experience the triggers, when you're starting to feel yourself kind of go into the other side?
So I think I kind of go with it. I've learned to go with it. So in my depressive phases, I try to do things that would help me get my serotonin levels up. I would
Hmm.
stay in bed if I felt like it. I would stay in bed without making myself feel guilty about it.
Hmm.
Um, I would take a day off. I would tell my my boss at work that I wouldn't be able to come in, and uh, so far everybody has been supportive. I did not discuss this with my boss yet, but I never really I whenever I told him I'm not feeling up to it, I never really got a no for an answer. He just told me to take your time and
Hmm.
go with it. And when I just wait for that depressive cycle to change.
Hmm.
uh, I just try to write down everything that I meant to do in this depressive cycle, and as soon as my mania would start to hit, I would start checking things off that list. I'd start doing things like for a week, I wouldn't sleep properly. I would just sleep like 3 or 4 hours, but
Hmm.
I would still try to check everything off that list that I meant to do earlier.
Oh my gosh, your depressive cycle sounds a lot more productive than mine. If I make a list, like make the bed, I'll make the bed while I'm in it, and I'm like, this is good. I've checked this off.
Yeah, actually, that was something that I felt too. Like, for example, so I try to study a lot of other things. Like, even if I'm working, I try to teach myself other things. I've taught myself how to code. I've taught myself how to do audio production myself when I was back in college. So I think these kind of things, that whenever I have an idea, I'll write them down. I'll not try to complete them in my depressive cycle because I know I'm not going to be able to do that.
Hmm.
Even if I was able to do this, I wouldn't be doing it like that great that I would in a manic cycle. So that's something that I had to make peace with. That if right now I am feeling low, so it's going to be here for a while. I'll just wait it out.
Oh yeah. It's
Yeah,
it's a waiting game. It's
exactly, exactly.
like when will it happen? And for me it can I there's been a lot of times where I'm just cooking dinner and then okay, I'm going into my mode. Let me turn off all the stoves, let me
Hmm.
tell someone supportive and I'm going to bed. This is what's going to happen now.
Absolutely, and that's very important. I think dealing with that, uh, knowing that yes, you're going into that cycle and knowing what would work for you. I think that's one of the major things that you would have to do for your recovery. Yes.
Yeah. And before, for myself, I had very unsupportive partners. No matter how many times I said what's going on with me, they took it personal. So
Okay.
the only difference in 2020 is I have a supportive partner, and, it's a big
Yeah.
difference and it helps. And
Absolutely.
with this podcast, I think a lot of people have started understanding, like, okay, like, because everything looks normal on the outside, there are still personal things that happen that, make it sometimes I'm non-functional. I mean, it looks like I'm being successful just on Instagram, but
Yeah.
I've started posting my ugly days as well. And I think it's opened people's like eyes a little bit more. They're like, wow, I didn't know like people went through that. Yeah.
Mhm. I think that's more important. A lot of things that we see on social media is just the positive sides. We don't see the negative sides, and I think that's what kind of brings us down every time we're scrolling through social media. that's not good. But yes, I think sharing those bad days, those low days with other people, I think that's what is needed right now, especially in 2020 with everything going on.
Oh my gosh, everything.
Yeah.
So I kind of wanted to go back to where you were saying that you tell your boss like if you're not feeling good or not,
Mhm.
and he's fine with it. So do you
Yeah.
ever plan on telling your coworkers or boss?
So I have a couple of coworkers who have an idea of what's going on about my, especially about my anxiety, triggers and everything, because I've had instances at work where I had an anxiety attack and there was nobody else to talk to.
Mm,
I just sat there frozen. I didn't know what to do. I was hyperventilating, and
mm,
it kind of made things a lot difficult. But somehow I found a couple of people who did go through the same struggle earlier,
mm.
so we kind of try to support each other whenever this thing happens.
Oh, that's awesome. I
Mhm.
had to leave my job because it was the opposite for me. I told my
Wow.
boss, and everybody's understanding, but they still take it personal when you're not
Yeah.
smiling, when you're secluded to yourself and everything. It was rough, but I had to leave my job because it was just so much. I'm worried about my own mental health, and I'm worried about other people's mental health.
Yeah.
It's exhausting. But I'm
I
glad
think
you have that.
my company, I think, has a lot of support for mental health. I see a lot of events that they organize and everything, but I still think at the end of the day, sharing it with somebody that you have this issue on a personal level is kind of difficult, is kind
Mhm.
of hard to do, because at the end of the day you don't know how it's going to turn out.
Right.
People say they're going to be okay with it, but that changes very fast. That changes before you even realize it.
Right. I know
Yeah.
for myself, when I post about psychosis and that I have two voices that I hear every day, that I still feel a little bit embarrassed because it's like, what's the level that I can tell people? But it is important. I feel like it's important to communicate with the people that you love. And I
Hmm.
do have a really good support system here. So I
That's
completely
great.
understand. Like you don't know how it's going to turn out when you tell strangers, but
Of course.
it's just life at that point.
Yeah,
So
I think that's true.
so have you, if you don't mind me asking, do you think there's a difference in perception when it comes to your gender identity for mental health issues?
I think, yeah. It comes down to again the same toxic masculinity idea that we had, that men shouldn't be having these issues,
Mhm.
right? That kind of like plays a huge role in this. And I think, I'm not sure about other countries, but in India it's still very primitive. It's still very
Okay.
stigmatized, of course, for men especially to have this issue.
Mhm.
Mental health in general is very stigmatized here, but I think for men especially, that's a very difficult thing to come up with and be very open about it.
Oh yes, 100%. And I would have to say the same thing for the United States. It's more of, it always has the background of boys shouldn't cry, boys should be tough and yada yada
Mhm.
yada, but boys still have feelings. So it,
Absolutely, and I think one of my relationships, one of my past relationships that I had, that kind of reflected on this issue. I was going through a lot, and I did like cry a couple of times in front of my partner, and that kind of uh, they kind of took it in a wrong way,
Mhm.
saying so I did not feel embarrassed about it, because I was very open to being vulnerable, and with my partner, especially because I've had a lot of uh, issues that I had worked out by then with my partner. But
Mhm.
I think that kind of drew a line where it drove like apart, that we kind of were not on the same page on that
Mm.
how things should be expressed and how feelings should be expressed, and we should be talking about them instead of just ignoring them.
Right. And that
Yeah,
is something that is really big, especially for myself and experience with the Black community.
of
It
course.
we don't express our feelings.
Yeah.
Now I feel like, the new generation, they're getting a lot more. ground with expressing it.
Yep.
But with my parents, when I'm having an episode, I don't they don't fully still they understand, but they don't fully understand what's
Yeah.
happening, and they'll still do the little remarks like, "Oh, you're being dramatic. Oh, calm down." And I know that they love me. I just know that they didn't grow up with talking about their mental health. So it makes them kind of uncomfortable.
Exactly. And I think that's kind of the same with me as well. I belong to a Sikh community where
Mhm.
we're supposed to be very strong.
Mhm.
Everything's supposed to be in place. We're never supposed to. So, one of the most stereotypical things that I hear about Sikhs is they're very outgoing, they're very happy,
Mhm.
they're very cheerful, upbeat, and everything. But I don't think that's the case with everyone, that we shouldn't be generalizing that. I have a couple of friends who are Sikhs and who do feel this way, who have issues with mental health, and who've been very open about them with me, of course. So I think that I know how it feels to to have to be someone that you're not actually. So that's
100%, because my family, we are a Christian-based family, and it is tough talking about mental health in the church, because if you're talking about your mental health, you have demons. These are demons you
absolutely
have to
that
pray
comes down.
away.
That comes down to the same thing here as well. You just have to pray and everything's going to be okay. It doesn't
Exactly.
work that way.
I'm gonna pray while taking these medicines.
Of course.
Um, so that kind of leads me into the next question when it comes to health institution. So,
Yeah.
are you currently taking medication?
Yes, a couple of mood stabilizers. Yes.
Okay, same. I've been very reluctant to take psychosis pills. I'm still
Mm.
not there yet, but we'll see. um,
I think antipsychotics should help a lot. I have taken them personally. I've
mhm,
had experiences with them. So my last relationship, when I was getting out of it, I had a lot of issues there, and I
mhm.
was prescribed Seroquel. I think that
Okay.
was, and it actually helped a lot. I wasn't getting good sleep. I wasn't actually sleeping at all. I would
Mhm.
wake up in every hour, thinking about some things. It would just be in breaks. I would sleep for like a half an hour or an hour, and I would wake up. But I think antipsychotics helped a lot.
So you're no longer on the antipsychotics.
No, not currently.
What made you get off of that pill versus all of them together?
So I went to my psychiatrist and I told him that I think now if I tried, I want to try like sleeping without a pill.
Mhm.
I want to try going a day without it. So he said, let's not mess with the mood stabilizers right now. Let's start with antipsychotics and see what how they affect you.
Mhm.
So I started I got off them for like a week, and that kind I went back to my psychiatrist and I shared my experience, and that kind of made him confident as well. Yes, I can do it. So that's when he stopped that.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people, they relapse, and they just get off of their pills completely, which is very dangerous. I did
Yeah.
that myself one time, because I didn't like the way the pills were making me feel.
Mhm.
So I just relapsed. I stopped taking them altogether, and I have been on them for a month. So with that already, the brain chemistry was like, well, let me just jack up your system.
Absolutely. I think that's a huge issue. Staying on your medications, especially in bipolar, is a huge issue. Uh,
Mhm.
Especially when you're cycling through different episodes. I
Mhm.
think that becomes very hard to do because your medications kind of remain the same, but the way you feel on them kind of changes every few. Depending on when your cycle changes, it kind of changes as well. So I think that's a major issue.
Yeah. For you, I don't know, do you still experience manics as well? That high state that is just out of control?
Not out of control. Not ever since I went on mood stabilizers, especially lithium. That kind of stopped me from going. like full on manic,
Mhm.
but I still managed to get to a point where I am able to be that productive, or I try to be that you know open with the things that I gotta do, and try to complete them all together. So I do try to give it my best, but
Mhm.
because I know that it's not gonna last long, it's gonna be depressive cycles are usually longer than manic cycles. So
Right.
I try to do it as much as I can, but yes, not fully. I haven't experienced full manias ever since I went on them.
Well, that's good. I know for myself, when I went onto the pills, I started noticing my hypomanic stages were slowing down.
Yeah.
And I was starting to notice that I was so reliant on them because it gave me the confidence that I needed,
Mhm.
that no wavering doubt. It's like I
Yeah.
was just confident through it all. And I was starting to notice that as that was going down, I'm like, I don't have confidence to do anything by myself. Like I had to kind of rediscover I had to discover like who I was without manic stages, you know?
Yeah, I think, but I think that the biggest problem with mood stabilizers is it does control your manic stages,
Mhm.
which is not such an issue with everybody, especially in
Mhm.
hypomania. It actually plays well for people because they've tried to manage everything. I know there are a lot of other symptoms like motor agitation and everything that does come with it, but I think that those are still manageable. But mood stabilizers are not that well for depressive cycles. I think
Mhm.
that we still go into that intensity of that depressive cycle. I think that's something that we need to work on in medications.
For sure. Now, there's a lot of institutional racism here in the US,
Mhm.
especially in the healthcare industry. It's not even funny, but would you say the same is happening in India?
I don't think so. I think here it's not so much about racism. As I said, gender identity is an issue in
Mhm.
healthcare, and I think that's a huge issue that we need to battle.
Mhm.
Uh, Lately I've been feeling there is an issue with institutional racism here in India. I did not feel that earlier. Lately I've started to notice some things, but I think when it comes to healthcare, it's almost the same. It's not different for people.
Okay. Did you
Yeah.
feel like when you did tell healthcare professionals, did they seem
Mm.
dismissive or anything?
Yes, but that would be because of
Yeah.
my my issues with my gender identity. It's not something to
Mhm.
do with racism. I think that it came down to.
Right. No, I was just asking because
Mhm.
even if it's not race, gender definitely comes into
Yeah.
play as well. Because I know for me, when I had a male doctor at first, when I told
Mhm.
him what was going on, he said, "Oh, you may just need your stress, why don't you just relax and stuff."
Mhm.
Then I went to a female doctor
Yeah.
and it was a completely different experience. So I felt like she listened to me a little bit more.
Absolutely. I think my current doctor, this was I think fourth or fifth doctor I tried. So there was a lot of dismissal earlier. Even with psychiatrists, I couldn't understand why they were dismissive of somebody having bipolar disorder.
Hmm.
They've studied about it all their lives, right? That's what they studied. That's what they majored in, and it still did not gel up well with them.
Hmm. And a lot of, even though psychiatrists have studied, a lot of people are placed into the borderline personality disorder category instead of
Yep.
bipolar. So then they go misdiagnosed for so long.
Actually that happened with me too.
Really?
I think so first when I did dismiss my initial diagnosis, after that the first time that I did go to a doctor, he said that it wasn't bipolar disorder, it was borderline personality disorder.
Hmm.
I started to work on that, like started to read about what happens and everything, started to educate myself. Then I went to another doctor because I felt like uh, I couldn't actually be very honest with this doctor. I was always on guard of everything that I said.
Hmm.
So the other doctor did finally we came to a conclusion that it was bipolar disorder, but I did have some tendencies of borderline personality disorder.
Got it.
Yeah.
And how did that
I
make you
think
feel?
I think that goes hand in hand. I think bipolar disorder and borderline personality disorder, they have a lot things in common.
Mhm.
I think that's the main issue why it's so hard for doctors even to differentiate between them. But I think that was a relief having, you know, to know actually what's going on. And, at the end, other doctors can tell you that something else is going on, because again, it comes down to how you're diagnosing it,
Mhm.
right? How you what are you what conclusions are you drawing from what things the patient is, what symptoms the patient is telling you about, right?
Mhm.
So I think that is an interpretation game, that how you interpret it. And yeah, I think it kind of felt better, because at first I knew that it was bipolar. Then somebody told me no, it wasn't bipolar, it was borderline personality. So it was kind of going haywire. But finally having like getting to know that yes, this is the main issue, that
Mhm.
was a relief.
Yeah. I bet that is so much of a relief because when I was diagnosed, I was like, okay, there is something going on. I'm not just making this up because so long I was even convinced like maybe I'm just overreacting. You have your family, the church telling you like, pray about it, you're overreacting and whatnot. So you start believing them. And
Yeah.
then and then when you get older, this is all this trauma you gotta unpack and work on.
Actually, yeah. So that's a huge issue. Knowing what's going on, it's is the first step towards recovery, right? Knowing and then accepting goes hand in hand.
Hmm.
So that is a huge relief. Yes.
Yes, for sure. So, is there anything we're gonna wrap up here? But is there anything
Mhm.
that you want to tell people just about mental health, just in general?
Yes, in general, I think that there is a lot of things that I've been working towards as well on my page. I think it's not just about having a mental illness. It could be any trigger, right? It could be anything that's triggering you right now, right?
Hmm.
So that's what I came up with on my page. I started to ask people if they would want to volunteer of being somebody's support, right? So if I don't have, for example, hypothetically, I don't have a mental illness, right? But
Hmm.
I could have a mental breakdown right now, even though if I do not have a mental illness.
Hmm.
That mental breakdown, from the time that I had it till the time I would actually reach therapy, that kind of, there's a huge gap between that.
Hmm.
I if I don't have my therapy sessions, assuming that I do go to therapy even though I do not have a mental illness, assuming that it would be a few days from now, that still has a lot of gap between right now what I would be feeling and how I would be able to describe it to my therapist.
Hmm.
But I think filling that gap, having somebody to talk to, especially when you know that's the person on the other side is far away from you, is not you know it's not going to affect your life in general. I
Hmm.
think that gives you a lot of comfort and a safe space to come out and express how you're feeling. So I think the biggest thing I would recommend is, no matter if you have a mental illness or not, anything that's triggering you, find a support system that you can express those feelings to, because before you get to therapy, you would need that support as well.
Yes, I 100% agree. And I love the idea and the concept. I would love to be a volunteer,
Mhm.
honestly.
of,
Um,
of course.
that sounds amazing. And one thing I would add is if you know someone who does have a mental illness, doing your research so that way you can kind of understand where they're coming from. They're not there to just explain to you every little thing. You could do the research because it is available on so many different resources.
Absolutely, I think that's a huge thing. If you do love somebody, you've got to educate yourself about what they're going through, to understand how they're reacting.
Exactly, exactly. Well, this has been so
Mhm.
entertaining. This has literally helped. I hope this is going to help so many people. I appreciate your time being on here.
It's my
I
pleasure.
thank you. Everybody, I want you guys to definitely check out his page. It is on Instagram from a Bipolar Mind. It will be in the comments, and it also will be in as a link on my podcast episode, so that way you guys can see it. But also, from what we have talked about today, definitely I hope something resonated with you, so that way you can carry it on to someone else. This is a tough time in the pandemic, so we're all going through it mentally, physically, emotionally. So please do not hesitate to reach out. And that is all we had today. Thanks, guys.